Over the last few days, I've been doing a bunch of digging on RC crawler foams and anti-foam inserts, trying to find what really is the best deal out there. Probably the cheapest way to get into it is if you actually 3D print them yourself, and I have, as example, these right here, tested some on my own, but at the end of the day, it's still not really that cheap. If you already have a 3D printer, then, the cost isn't too bad. You can get a whole roll of filament like this for like $20 or $30 and print a whole bunch of different ones. But at the end of the day, a lot of folks still don't have 3D printers. So when I look out there at the cheapest way to get out of foams and get into something non-foam, like an insert or an anti-foam, the folks at Injora are still out there providing us some super value-oriented, budget-oriented stuff. You can get a 4-pack, this 4-pack right here, or that 4-pack right there, different hardnesses for $20. Literally 4 of them for $20. So for the same amount or less money than what the 3D printer filament's going to cost you, you can get a whole set of 4 of them. And actually, as I'm filming this now, they've also released a third spec, a green spec, that's in for an even softer, lighter weight vehicles, so that you can choose all of these based on the stiffness that you want. We're going to put this into the tires from my Red Cat Ascent. We're going to give them a shot and just see how good or bad are they really. And I got the medium spec and the hard spec, even though my truck should be fairly light, because I believe we can test these, and if they're too hard, we have the ability to come in here and modify them, maybe cut some of these ribs out to make them softer. So I think maybe these are the better choice instead of getting the soft ones and then tuning them to the exact specs of your vehicle. Before we get tearing all these apart though, let me do a couple baseline tests with this truck as it sits with these stock foams in the stock tire. The first thing that I like to look at when I try to see how stiff is the tire and is it appropriate for the vehicle, not super scientific, but how much is the tire squishing? You see this right here. This is how much about I like. I want to see how much tread we can get down on the ground without it being absolutely flat. So when we're looking at this one and we see that nice big contact patch, that contact patch is traction. That contact patch is rubber on the ground giving you traction. If you only had an itty bitty bit of rubber touching, that's less traction. So I don't mind kind of that air down squish look. I'm really happy with how that looks like here. What gets us bad though is when you start getting into a side hill situation and you start seeing that tire curl over like this, and I've noticed this with these stock foams in the Ascent, is that they seem like they curl over really, really easy. So to be clear, all I'm doing here is just lifting up this side of the truck. I'm not doing anything else to it, and you can see how that, I'm not pushing on it, I'm not doing anything, and there's no battery in it, so there's obviously a little bit less weight on it. And you can just see how that tire is just bending over. So that's something that we don't want, and that stuff like these inserts typically are a little bit better at. So let's get some of these inserts in there and see how it compares. This is a really good reason why you can't always just trust what people online say, recognizing that I'm one of those people online actually, so that's kind of ironic. But so many people have complained that yes, these things come in square. Okay, great. Yes, they do. But as soon as you squish them around a little bit, as soon as you mount them up, you literally can't tell. It doesn't matter. The other thing that people keep saying is that they're too small and that they don't fit. Oh, you got to only get a narrow tire like an Injora tire. Oh, they don't fit other tires. They're noticeably bigger than the foams that come in the Ascent. Like, noticeably. Stand the tires up side by side here. Here's the stock tire. Here's the one with this Injora insert in it. You can tell it's actually taller and it's actually rounding the tread out. I'm thinking that might be a bad thing, but it's certainly not a situation where they're too small. Think about like the sidewall stiffness. It's dramatically stiffer. I can't see why people are complaining about these, if I'm honest. But geez, are they heavier? I mean, look at that. 220 grams versus 290? That's a huge difference, especially recognizing that a lot of that weight is actually from my wheels. The total of that 200 total, most of that's my wheel. So to be adding another 70 just from the inserts is really kind of surprising. With this blue insert in here, you can see we've lost a lot of that squish. So these are noticeably stiffer than maybe the stock foams are. Now, question will be, if we run these, do they get a little bit softer over time? Do they have a temperature effect? It's really cold out right now here where I live. It's in like the 40s, 50s. So it is going to be a little bit maybe stiffer than it would maybe in the middle of the summer. So that's interesting. It might be something we have to watch. But I am still getting some sidewall flex there. So I'm not mad at it, but man, I would really like it if it was down just a little bit more. But I'm betting what we're going to see now is from the side hill. Look, there's literally like no deflection whatsoever. I have that tire. I can push on that tire. That is exactly what we're looking for. And that's exactly the benefit that we're after. Here's another test to show that basically as soon as you get that thing mounted up, put that center ring in, yeah, that square goes away. So that's really fine. And then check this out. So we make sure we can actually see now the actual squish. We can see how much deformation we're really getting. That actually does look pretty good, right? This is a pretty lightweight truck. And check it out. That's actually deforming pretty well. Not really meant to do this, but there. That is awesome. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to swap over to these hard ones so that we can see the difference between the blue and the red. Now with these red ones, again, you can see a little bit squarish. But then as we push, let's see if they do the same thing as the blue ones. Push the center ring into them, and they're immediately round. It takes all of that square out. I think the other thing that's interesting, again, is people keep complaining about the dimensions of these. You can see these trio bead locks. The inner ring here is basically the exact correct width for this insert. Well, that looks pretty silly. Who dares me to go out and crawl it this way and see just how far across my crawler course I can get with no actual tire but just the foams? By hand, there is a very noticeable difference in stiffness here. It's interesting. Still see some pretty decent squish here, though. Look at the contact patch that we have here. From actually on the ground is somewhere around 40 millimeters. 40 millimeters of total contact patch with that here on the front. We can see about where that's going to go. It looks like that contact patch is probably just shy of 50 millimeters long. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know, but that's a good baseline for us to understand as we compare it to the other specs. This has got me wondering, and I'm second guessing. I'm realizing that I should have done this before I started messing with the tires and wheels. The other side has still all stock foam, stock tires on it. Without the tires on here, hopefully that helps balance out the weight of these inserts. Let's get an idea of what the crawler total weighs that we're messing with here today, because Injora does actually give guidelines. They say that these red are made for a crawler that's 8 kilograms heavy, the blue is made for a crawler that's around 4, and then their green are for a crawler that's 2 to 3. So let's see here. If I weigh this Ascent, it's got some modifications and stuff like that done to it. So its total weight is 2,700 grams. So that'd be 2.7 kilograms, which means according to their specs, I should be well into the green spec. Neither one of these. I would agree from what I've seen so far. Red, not really useful for me. But I think here's the thing that we really have to make sure that we watch. 1,600 grams on the front, 1,000 on the rear. So that means like, maybe I'm actually fine with these blue being on the front. Maybe I want the green spec on the rear, or I want to modify the blues on the rear to be, because it's really that 1,000 kilograms. It'd be kind of nice if Injora, instead of telling about the total crawler weight, actually gave us an axle weight per spec, because that would actually really help us dial in which foams, which of these inserts are best for which axle. But I believe that these things can be easily modified. So we did a baseline already. We knew that with these on the front of this truck sitting here just like this, these had about a 40 millimeter contact patch. These had about a 50. What I'm going to do is take these off. I'm going to start looking at what I think I can do from like cutting some of the material out of this to see, can I actually tune these a little bit more, get a larger contact patch, and effectively change how this insert works. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to come in here on the outside, and I'm going to just snip them. Oh my gosh, I did two side by side. Probably shouldn't have done that. Probably should have skipped a few. So we're going to do one, we're going to skip one, do one, skip one, do one, skip one. All right, so I'm going to do that for about half the tire. So there's one, skip one, there's one. All right, so we've done that for about half of this tire, so we can test how does that impact it alone. On this other side of the tire, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do it to this second kind of stage. You can kind of see they have a big outside stage, middle stage, and then this inner one. I think I'm probably going to leave the inner one alone because it looks like it kind of helps maybe keep everything centered. But over here, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sneak in. I'm going to start snipping every other one of these insides. And I am guessing that just doing this with scissors is plenty to break whatever kind of forces and however they do it in there. First test, this has the outer rim cut and it's down, and you can actually see, I hope you can see it in here, you can actually see how they're layering in side by side to each other right there. So it is physically compressing more than it would have otherwise, but the only place that I see it actually doing that is right down here at the bottom. Up here at the top, you basically see no difference. If I look at total touching dimension, doesn't look like we've done anything. It looks like it's still at 40 millimeters. If we then flip it a half turn, now we're all down here, and on this bottom side now, this is all where I cut these center pieces. So I cut these center ribs. Can't really see it doing a whole lot. Up here you can actually see it separating a little bit, like it's actually pulling down from it. And, yep, still basically the same contact patch. The good news about this means that if you ever get a stick or anything stuck in here while you're out on the trail, or if you ever think that one of these breaks and it's going to matter, it doesn't, because I just cut a whole bunch of them and it's still doing great. These are $20 and I've already figured out that the reds are probably not what I need. Let's get a little more aggressive. Let's cut every other one from the inside row, the middle row, and that outside row all the way around and see if that really makes a difference. All right, now we're really getting aggressive. We've cut every other one from the outside ring and every other one from the middle ring. And now when I look at it, we're solidly at 50 millimeters, if not maybe even a little bit more over as far as total compact patch. It turns out, yes, indeed, you can actually tune these a little bit just by getting the spec that's too hard and then start snipping it for you a little bit. Snip it down a little bit as you test and tune, and you can actually make it softer. And just to confirm that even with all of those cut, I don't think I've impacted side hill at all. Based on this testing, I'm going to put these blue ones on the whole vehicle. But on the rear, which I know is like less than half the weight of the front, I am going to snip every other one, I think from this middle rib. I think the middle rib is where I'm going to take all those out of. Every other one on the rear just to help soften it up a little bit as I put it on. Enough talking about it. Let's go out and give this thing a test drive and see how it does. back from the test drive. It was way too cold out there. It is staggeringly cold outside. There's a big snowstorm that's supposed to be coming through here like tomorrow, and it looks pretty outside, but it is freezing. That does leave me with a question. These inserts, the material that they're made out of, how sensitive to temperature are they really? I don't know that yet. So when I look at the truck crawling out there on the course, if you see it in the video, the fronts still seem a little bit too stiff. So I'm very tempted to go in there and snip out some of those connections in there to soften those fronts. But if during normal crawling days, if it's, you know, much hotter than it is out here today, well, will I regret that? And I just don't know. We just need to test this more long term to see really which one is the right answer. Major takeaways when it comes to these inserts. People complain that they're a little bit squarish out of the box. Yep, they are. As soon as you mount them up, it doesn't matter. It goes away immediately, so stop complaining about it. It doesn't matter. The second thing is people say that they're the wrong size. I've now tested them in these. I also tested them in the Proline tires that I have on my Axial Gladiator. They actually fit just fine. They fit perfect. I have no issues with how they fit whatsoever. So that's interesting. Third and most importantly is the exact spec that you get is very important to match it to the weight of your vehicle. So this is why you see some folks that offer the more expensive inserts that you can buy online having many varieties for very specific tires and weight and vehicle combinations. I think the very important thing here is you can modify these to suit your taste. That means depending on the weight of your vehicle, you get the ones that might be a little bit too stiff for it. You can then tune them by cutting the pieces out in order to get it back exactly right for your vehicle weight, front and rear, being different with very different weights front and rear. So you can actually tune these for that. It is really nice that you can do that. Overall, I'm a big believer in these insert style instead of a foam style for RC crawler tires. As noted earlier, I had actually 3D printed some online about a year ago. These have seen a good amount of use and they still work, and I love it because you can get water in there and it doesn't matter. It just comes right back out. If you don't like them, you can just print some in a little bit different material or a little bit different design and just keep going. I think this is the future for RC crawling. And I don't think it has to be as expensive as it has been. There's some companies out there that have been able to charge extra money for their inserts because they were kind of unique and new. I think Injora is coming in and really changing the game. Now, hey, I'll be interested if you're an insert manufacturer company out there and you want to reach out to me and you want to partner and you want me to test yours because you think they're that much better than these Injoras, drop me a line. My email's down below. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. Give a shout out. Connect with me if you want me to test yours. I'd be curious. Are the ones that are $100+ for a set, are they really that much better than these $20 ones? I'm skeptical, so prove me wrong. Send me some and let me try them. What am I gonna do now personally? I think I'm going to take these front tires off because I already have them. I've already paid for them. They're already here. I'm going to take these fronts off and I'm going to trim some of those inserts out to soften up the front tire. And I think my son's Ecto needs some. I have a TRX4 that needs some. Only $20 a set. I think I'm going to have to get myself a set of the green, the newer spec that Injora has out that are the even softer ones. I think I'm going to get myself a set of those and we're going to try those out. So keep a lookout. Future video coming on the channel. If you're curious about this, stay tuned. Subscribe button and the like button down there will help out with that. And if you're curious about anything else that I've done with this Red Cat Ascent, there'll be a playlist popping up here to your right. So I hope to see you in one of those videos. Thank you and goodbye.